You are lying in the dark. A high-pitched whine circles your ear. You slap your skin in frustration. The itch begins almost immediately. How did you get here? For most of human history, this is not a minor annoyance. This is a battle for survival. The mosquito is the deadliest predator on Earth. It has killed more humans than any other animal in the history of the world. How did your ancestors survive this relentless threat without modern chemical sprays or fine mesh screens? You must imagine a world without boundaries between you and nature. You must imagine nights entirely exposed to the open air. The buzzing is a constant and terrifying companion. The threat of invisible disease hangs heavy in the humid breeze. What do you do when the endless swarm finally descends upon your camp? You cannot simply run away from the danger. The insects are faster than you are. They are absolutely everywhere. They sense the invisible plumes of carbon dioxide leaving your lungs with every single breath you take. You are a glowing beacon in the pale prehistoric night. How do you hide from a hunter that tracks the very rhythm of your respiration? Your world is painted in muted colors as the sun finally dips below the horizon. You are an anonymous figure standing against the vastness of the ancient landscape. The real emotional labor begins when the fading light brings the swarm out from the shadows. Your first and most accessible defense is the raw earth itself. You walk to the riverbank and scoop up the thick wet clay. You cover your exposed skin entirely in this dense mud. The wet earth cools your tired body under the lingering heat of the day. As it slowly dries, it forms a rigid and impenetrable crust over your delicate pores. The mosquito cannot pierce this hardened armor with its fragile mouthparts. Why do you think modern animals still engage in this exact same behavior today? Pigs and elephants wallow deeply in the mud for a very specific reason. They are building a physical barrier against relentless external parasites. This is not just a theoretical concept of ancient survival. Researchers observing traditional societies have witnessed this exact defensive strategy in action. Anthropologist Richard Lee documented the daily lives of the San people of the Kalahari Desert. He noted their incredibly intimate knowledge of their harsh environment and its resources. They utilized the natural materials immediately around them for essential protection. Mud is the oldest and most fundamental armor known to our species. The hardened clay masks your scent and blocks the physical bite. But is a layer of dirt truly enough to save you during the relentless peak of the wet season? The answer is no. You desperately need something significantly more powerful than just a physical barrier. You need to manipulate the chemistry of the air around you. You kneel down and carefully build a fire. You gather specific types of freshly cut green wood and damp fallen leaves. You throw this moist vegetation directly onto the intensely hot coals. Thick white smoke immediately billows upward into the darkening sky. Mosquitoes simply cannot navigate through heavy and chaotic smoke. The vital carbon dioxide they use to track your location is completely masked by the burning plant matter. Does the smoke make it difficult for you to breathe comfortably? Your lungs ache slightly from inhaling the dense soot. Your eyes water constantly in the hazy camp. But the agonizing biting finally stops. Fire is not just a tool used for providing warmth or cooking raw meat. It is a highly effective chemical weapon deployed against invisible and bloodthirsty hordes. You bear the emotional burden of keeping this vital fire alive throughout the entire night. If the embers die, the swarm will instantly return to claim their toll. Did your ancient ancestors actually understand the complex chemistry behind this daily practice? Archaeologist Lynn Wadley found the definitive proof hidden deep within the earth. She meticulously excavated Sibutu Cave located in South Africa. She dug down through countless ancient layers of compacted dirt and fossilized ash. She found something absolutely astonishing dating back 77,000 years ago. She discovered the remnants of ancient bedding made from very specific fossilized plant leaves. These particular leaves belonged to the Cryptocarya wood species native to the region. These leaves contain naturally occurring chemicals that are highly toxic and repulsive to mosquitoes. How did your ancestors know exactly which leaves to select from the dense forest? They constantly observed the natural world around them. They experimented endlessly with different plants through a grueling process of trial and error. They passed this crucial survival knowledge down through a generational silence that speaks volumes through their successful lineage. You gather these incredibly sharp-smelling leaves before the sun sets. You physically crush the resilient fibers in your bare hands to release the potent essential oils. You meticulously rub the crushed vegetation over every single inch of your bare skin. The intense medicinal scent thoroughly confuses the sensory organs of the approaching mosquitoes. They simply cannot locate your veins through the chemical camouflage. Can you imagine the profound relief of finally finding a moment of peace? You line the perimeter of your sleeping area with these fragrant broken branches. The entire cave smells sharp and powerfully medicinal. You can finally close your heavy eyes without absolute terror. You can rest your exhausted mind without the constant and paralyzing fear of the swarm. But this sanctuary is only temporary. What exactly happens when you are forced to leave the safety of the painted cave? You obviously cannot carry a heavily smoking fire with you everywhere you go. You cannot always find the specific insect-repelling leaves when migrating across new territories. You must fundamentally adapt your physical movements to the behavior of the insect. You learn to closely watch the direction and speed of the wind. Mosquitoes are notoriously weak and fragile flyers. They simply cannot navigate effectively in a strong and steady breeze. You choose your new campsites with extreme and calculated caution. Where do you think the safest place to sleep would be in a prehistoric landscape? You deliberately avoid the stagnant pools of standing water where the insects breed in massive numbers. You force your weary legs to climb to much higher ground. You actively seek out the wide open plains where the wind endlessly sweeps through the tall grass. You intimately learn the daily biological rhythms of your tiny adversaries. You know with absolute certainty that they are most active during the twilight hours of dawn and dusk. You seek dense shelter the moment the sun begins to physically drop. You build intricate structures designed specifically to limit the internal airflow. You weave dense and heavy mats from collected reeds and tall grass. Are these early structures merely meant to keep the cold rain out? They are designed to capture and hold the smoke from your small indoor fire. You create tight sleeping quarters that act as a protective fumigation chamber. The trapped smoke creates a highly toxic microclimate for any insect that manages to slip inside. You sleep huddled closely together with your extended family for mutual protection. The shared body heat and the lingering smoke create a vital shield against the darkness. This microscopic battle deeply influenced the physical geography of human settlement. Historian Timothy C. Weingard wrote a comprehensive and terrifying study on the mosquito. He detailed exactly how this incredibly tiny insect fundamentally shaped the course of human empires. It ruthlessly dictated exactly where vast cities could be safely built. How could a creature so small alter the very trajectory of human history? It determined who won ancient wars and who was ultimately destroyed by invisible plagues. It forced your prehistoric ancestors to biologically adapt to survive the onslaught. The threat was so intensely severe that human biology itself had to permanently mutate. You live your life in a tropical region thoroughly plagued by deadly malaria. The microscopic parasite aggressively destroys your vital red blood cells from the inside out. The resulting fever violently burns through the members of your tribe. But incredibly, some of the young children manage to survive the outbreak. Why do certain individuals walk away from the fever while others silently perish? They survive because of an entirely random but advantageous genetic mutation. This specific mutation physically alters the normal round shape of their red blood cells. It forces the fragile cells to curve sharply like a harvesting sickle. The deadly malaria parasite cannot easily infect or reproduce within these misshapen and rigid cells. This biological phenomenon is known today as the sickle cell trait. It is a powerful biological shield forged directly in the unforgiving fires of an endless evolutionary war. Do you truly realize the heavy biological price your physical body paid for this vital protection? Evolution is a brutal and entirely unsentimental negotiation. It coldly trades one form of suffering for another just to keep the broader species alive. If you inherit the genetic trait from only one parent, you are shielded from the malarial parasite. If you tragically inherit it from both parents, you suffer from a severely debilitating and painful blood disorder. Your ancient ancestors obviously did not know anything about DNA or microscopic parasites. They only knew the harsh reality of who survived the brutal wet season and who did not. They seamlessly integrated this harsh survival reality into their spiritual culture. How do you warn your descendants about a killer you cannot even see? They created powerful myths and terrifying stories to warn the next vulnerable generation. They spoke in hushed tones of malevolent invisible spirits dwelling deeply within the swamps. They recognized the extreme danger of the stagnant water through pure generational observation. Have you ever wondered why swamp air was universally considered cursed by ancient people? The ancient Romans specifically called it bad air. In the Italian language, that exact phrase translates directly to malaria. They mistakenly thought the toxic-smelling gases rising from the marshes caused the burning fevers. They aggressively drained the massive swamps surrounding their settlements. They deliberately built their sprawling cities on high and heavily wind-swept hills. They engineered massive and complex aqueducts to bring flowing clean water directly into their homes. They were fighting a desperate war against the mosquito without even realizing the true identity of the enemy. They were permanently altering the physical landscape solely to eliminate the insect breeding grounds. You do the exact same thing on a much smaller and personal scale. Do you leave your carved wooden bowls filled with rainwater near your sleeping mats? You absolutely do not leave water sitting stagnant in dried gourds or animal skin bags. You meticulously keep your temporary camp perfectly clean and completely dry. You inherently understand that still water is the ultimate enemy of your people. It is the undeniable birthplace of the suffocating and deadly swarm. You also utilize animal fats to heavily protect your exposed skin. You successfully hunt a large and dangerous beast on the open plains. You slowly render the thick animal fat over the heat of the open fire. You carefully mix the warm liquid grease with crushed ash and highly pungent wild herbs. You thickly coat your entire body in this heavy and foul-smelling ointment. How incredibly uncomfortable does this dense layer of fat feel on your skin? It smells entirely rancid in the heat of the day. It feels incredibly heavy and uncomfortably sticky against your flesh. But it successfully creates a powerful and necessary physical barrier. The delicate legs of the mosquito physically get trapped in the thick layer of grease. They simply cannot find a clean and dry patch of skin to pierce with their needle mouths. The overpowering scent of the animal fat completely masks your natural human odor. You smell exactly like the wood smoke and the damp earth and the dead animal. You effectively become entirely invisible to the relentless hunters of the air. How much extreme physical discomfort would you willingly endure just to survive the night? You silently endure absolutely all of it. You endure the blinding and stinging smoke in your eyes. You endure the heavy and drying mud pulling at your skin. You endure the rancid smell of the thick animal fat. You drastically change your natural sleeping habits. You constantly change your physical location based on the wind and the water. You literally change your very genetic code over countless agonizing generations. You do all of this because the only other alternative is complete extinction. The mosquito fundamentally shaped the complex patterns of early human migration. It aggressively kept your ancestors out of the dense malarial jungles for thousands of years. Did you know that an insect controlled the map of human expansion? It ruthlessly forced early humans to adapt to much harsher but ultimately safer environments. It is the hidden reason why some ancient populations thrived while others completely vanished into the earth. You look closely at the tiny crushed insect smeared against your forearm. You see a tiny bright drop of your own blood staining your skin. You realize with sudden clarity exactly how fragile your human existence truly is. You are standing at the end of a long and unbroken line of ultimate survivors. Today, you casually spray invisible synthetic chemicals from a pressurized aerosol can. You sleep comfortably under perfectly manufactured synthetic nets. You easily swallow manufactured pills to completely ward off the microscopic parasites. You have almost entirely forgotten the deep ancestral terror of the buzzing swarm. You actively complain about a small and itchy red bump on your ankle. You do not consciously realize that for the vast majority of human history that incredibly small bump was a dangerous roll of the dice. You wake up when your body is naturally ready, but you are only alive because of the mud and the thick smoke and the bitter crushed leaves. You violently slap your skin in the dark,